And good morning. I'm Bob Bednarz with Bob's Coffee Chat, and today's presentation is Flourishing in the New Normal with Stephen Campbell. Stephen will explore how cognitive psychology has discovered how we can replace our negative thinking with positive, preventative messages. Stephen is a professor, author, educational dean, and professional speaker. Since writing his third book, Making Your Mind Magnificent, Stephen has been conducting seminars around the world to enable his audiences to absolutely thrive in these unprecedented times. He does so by teaching and demonstrating how we can replace negative messages with positive ones, especially during these challenging times. He then shows how our brains can make new messages as part of who we are. So, Stephen, how can you change our brains to improve who we are?
Well, believe it or not, in 30 minutes, I'm going to show you how to. Before we start, I've given this presentation, this particular one, around the world. And when I gave it to the Livermore Unified School District a number of years ago, the superintendent said, could we get the slides? Because I want to send these slides to the parents. And I said, you really need the words. So what I've done is I've written down every word I'm going to say today. And I put that on a PDF. So the words are on the left, the slides are on the right. And if you would like this as a PDF, please put your name and your email in the chat line, and I'll send it to you afterwards, because people start frantically taking notes, and I really don't want you to have to do that. So just relax, enjoy. If you want a copy of this, ask me. It's all free. There's no cost to this at all. And then I'll send it to you this afternoon. Okay? Okay. So let's just begin. The news is coming, it's here. And it's not only worldwide, but it is right next door. But what's really interesting about that is that preparation doesn't begin with plans. It doesn't begin with programs. Preparation, like everything, begins in our minds. Everything starts here. So, for instance, when I go across the Golden Gate Bridge, I'm amazed at what I'm seeing, but the Golden Gate Bridge did not begin with somebody's plans. It began in the mind of James Wilkins, who was a reporter for the San Francisco Gazette. He had the vision. Bank of America provided the money, and the rest is history. Everything starts up here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about 3 principles about how we've learned about the brain since the early 60s. And this is where cognitive psychology came in. And these principles are not only wonderful, but you can apply them to your life. So we're going to apply them when we're done with this. So sort of hang on to your seats, okay? While I'm talking to you, you're talking to yourself thousands of times faster. And the reason the brain can do that is because when I talk to you, I use words. And when we talk to ourselves, we also use words. But when we talk to yourself mainly, we use pictures and feelings. So when I think of my wife, Mary, or I think of our grandson, I can't possibly put into words how I feel about her and how pretty she's become to me in the 50 years we've been married. But the important part I want to share with you is this, and here's the first principle. Ready? And I'll say this really slowly so you don't miss this. If you want to write down something down, this is what you want to write down. Here we go. Ready? Principle number 1. While I'm talking to you, your brain believes everything you tell it without question. That's scary. And that's wonderful. The scary part is when you say, I just cannot do this, your brain says, okay, yeah, you're right, you can't. And then it makes sure you can. That's the scary part. The wonderful part is when you say, I can do this, your brain says immediately, oh, okay, you're absolutely right. And then becomes obsessed with finding ways for you to do it. Now, big question is what you're saying true? Your brain doesn't even care. And when I heard that in a psychology class years ago by Dr. V.S. Ramachandran out of UC San Diego, I was really skeptical. He wrote a wonderful book called Phantoms of the Brain, written by is referred to phantom limbs that have been amputated. And a patient may go into a doctor's office, he'll say, you got to help me. I can't do a thing with my arm. The doctor may say, well, that could be because I cut off that arm 6 months ago. And the patient says, you didn't tell my brain that. My brain still thinks it's there. My brain wants to pick things up with it. So the brain doesn't care whether what you're saying is true or not. Let me share with you a story that really illustrates this point. I taught mathematics at the University of San Francisco, and Susie came to my office after the first day of class. She was one of my students. She was very shy, sat down, and she said, Mr. Campbell, I'm really glad you're my professor because I am a C student in math. I said, how do you know, Sue? Because I have never gotten above a C in a math test. So don't feel bad when I get a C in this course. And I said, well, Sue, I used to be the same way. So I worked with her. She got an A in the first midterm. And I gave her the test, and she absolutely freaked out. She went, oh! And then she said, oh, Mr. Campbell, this is a mistake. What do you mean, Sue? She said, I have never gotten above the C in a math test. You must have made a mistake. And I said, I didn't, Sue. This is the genuine A. So then she looked at it longer. I'll never forget this. She looked at it longer, and her face just lit up. And she said, do you know what this means? And I said, of course I do, Sue, but you tell me, what does this mean? This means that when I flunk the next test, I can still maintain my C. I said, Sue, just get an A in every test. She said, I can't. Why? What was her answer, people? I'm a C student. That's exactly what happened. She flunked the next test. She got a C in the course. So I sat down with her. I said, Sue, answer me this. What would have happened if you would flunk this first test? Do you know what she said without a moment's hesitation? Right. She said, easy. I would have studied like crazy to get an A on the next test. I'd have to maintain my C. I said, Sue, just get an A in every test. She said, I can't. Why? Because I'm a C student. This is always the way I've been. This is how I was raised. This is how I feel. This is how I see myself. These are the mistakes that I've made. This is where I get stuck. This is the way things are. Or. Do you know when your old life ended? 1 second ago. So when did your new life begin? 1 second ago. Now do the math, 60 seconds per minute, 60 minutes per hour, 24 hours per day in one 24-hour period. You have 86,400 new opportunities for new life every single day. All you have to do is take them. So here are the most important slides, just 2 of them in this presentation. The primary element that holds us back from learning and growing and changing is what we say to ourselves. Do you hear me? Not how we were raised. It's what we say about how we were raised. It's not what we look like. It's what we say about how we will look like. And the wonderful thing about that is that you can replace what you're saying. Notice I didn't use the word change. I never used the word change in my presentations. Why? Because the brain hates change. The brain doesn't want you to change. The brain wants to keep you right where you're at. It doesn't want you to lose that weight. It doesn't want you to make more money. It wants you to keep you right where you're at because its job is to keep you in the comfort zone, keep you safe. So what I do is I say, okay, let's not change. Let's replace. Let's replace what we've been saying to ourselves. Now, let's go deeper, okay? Our brain takes shortcuts. What does that say? It doesn't say a bird in the bush. How many does? Okay, and yet you said a bird in the bush when you first saw it because your brain said this is so easy, except the brain is wrong. In fact, the brain is wrong a lot, especially when you talk about yourself. Scientists can't agree, but I think it's around 75, 80% of what we say to ourselves about ourselves is negative crap. I thought it was just me till I began studying this about 30 years ago. And I realized when it started with Shad Helmspitter's book, What to Say When You Talk to Yourself, most of what we say to ourselves is negative. The brain takes shortcuts. I showed this to Mary. I said, which square is darker, the A or the B? And she said, of course, the A is darker and the B is lighter. I said, you know what? They're the same color. Prove it to me. Can you see the squares? Same color here, same color there. And yet if I go back, the A is darker, the B is lighter. What does the B have the A doesn't have? Shade. So what the brain does is it makes it lighter so you can see it better. In other words, dear people, the brain's been fooling you your entire life. And what you're going to learn today by the end of this is to call it at its own game and begin saying, wait a minute. I'm just not going to say that anymore. You know what your brain says? Oh, okay. Is it true? Don't care. All I care is what you tell me. Wow. Okay, so principle 1, your brain believes what you tell it. Principle 2, this is the most exciting one. Well, principle 3, I think, is even more exciting, but this one is very exciting. Principle 2, our feelings primarily come from our beliefs, not completely. They come from how much sleep we've gotten, what we've eaten, what we've done, but primarily they come from our beliefs. So let me explain this. This comes from Dr. Albert Ellis's book, A Guide to Rational Living, printed back in 1961. And since then, dozens and dozens of books, my library is packed with these books, okay, have come out to talk about this. But let's go into a little bit of detail. Let's imagine that Bob and I have been friends for years, okay? And one day I show up at Bob's house on a Saturday morning with a big shovel. I say, hi, Bob. Hi, Steve. How's the kids? Good to see you. I want to dig a hole into your backyard. And Bob says, okay, that's a little weird, but Steve has always been weird. So, okay. So I go to Bob's backyard. I start digging a hole. And he begins developing some beliefs, such as today's my birthday. And Steve knows that. He also knows I love rose bushes. That's what he's doing. He's digging a hole to plant a rose bush in my backyard for my birthday. Oh, Steve, I love you. Call Mary. Let's have a party tonight. So that's scenario number 1. Scenario number 2 is that we absolutely hate each other. And finally, I show up at Bob's house with a shovel on a Saturday morning. Knock on the door. Hi, Bob. I'm digging a hole in your backyard. And as he watches me dig the hole, his beliefs are completely different. His beliefs are I'm digging the hole to bury him in it. Okay? Now watch this. Same Bob, same Steve, same shovel, same Saturday morning, same backyard, same hole, completely different beliefs, completely different feelings. What am I saying? I'm saying that you are stuck with feelings because that's what you're saying. You can replace the beliefs and the feelings follow. Well, Steve, what about 9/11? It didn't matter what I was believing when I saw 9/11. That's absolutely true. Or the pandemic. It didn't matter what we were believing when the pandemic hit. We had all these feelings. But over time, your feelings gradually change and my feelings change because our beliefs change. In other words, Dr. Ellis's discovery is that we can affect our beliefs. We can't change them. We can't control them and say, well, I will feel this way and not feel that way. Our feelings don't work that way. But we can influence them. We can affect them. So let's see how, okay? Here's some examples. I feel useless because I'm out of work, okay? I feel stranded because I'm in the pandemic, okay? We think that events such as being unemployed or being in the pandemic affect how we feel or explain how we feel. Rather, ready? It's our belief about being unemployed. It's our belief about being in the pandemic that explains how we feel. And, ready? Here we go. Hold on to your hat. We can replace those beliefs. Is it easy? Of course not. Because frankly, my dear people, some of the beliefs that you've had about yourself, you've had your entire life. And they really are hard to replace. But you can start to do so with the decision. Okay, so let's see how this would work. I feel useless because I'm unemployed. Well, there's no commutes. I don't have to travel down to San Jose or Danville or whatever. I can just do it all right here. Okay, I can connect with my family. I can travel. I can fine-tune my skills. I'm learning how to make the Nautilus from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Walt Disney back in 1954. I'm very excited about that. I can get my guitar down and begin playing again. I can register for classes, get back in shape, start my own business. I feel stranded in the pandemic. Well, countries are helping each other. They're helping each other with vaccines and with other wonderful things, okay? Carbon emissions are plunging. We have clear waterways. There's a focus on essential workers. Traveling is minimal. People are sleeping better. People are in touch with each other. And there's a break in our routine. Some good things have come out of this pandemic. But they start with what you believe. One of my heroes is Dr. Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. You've heard of Dr. Frankl. He was an Austrian psychologist, neurobiologist, who ended up at Auschwitz for 3 years as an inmate. And here's what he said. Everything can be taken from a human, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude given a set of circumstances. And he also said to choose one's own way. We can do that. We are only victims when we say we are. Wow. So let me give you another example just to share with you how this is so real. 2018 was an amazing year for me. At the beginning, I discovered I had cancer and then cataracts and then diabetes. And then at the end of the year, I discovered I had advanced heart disease. My mitral valve was flipping all over the place. So the cancer, they simply removed the skin off my scalp and now I'm cancer-free. For the diabetes, they replaced the lenses and now I've got a pair of glasses, but I don't really need them anymore, which is really nice. I'm sorry, that's for the cataracts. The diabetes, I've had to completely switch my lifestyle. I've lost 30 pounds. And for the advanced heart disease, I had open heart surgery last year. And now my heart is good as new. The point I want to make, however, is this. My feelings did not come from the cancer or the cataracts. They came from what I was saying about the cancer and the cataracts. People say to me, I'm not really sure what I believe. There's a wonderful handle, and that is look at your self-talk. If you want to know what you're believing about yourself and everything else, listen to what you're saying to yourself. That will tell you. And you can replace what you're saying. Okay, here we go. Number one, saying. Number two, your feelings are coming from your beliefs. Number three, our brains are continually rewiring themselves. It's called neuroplasticity. So let me share with you another story. Many, many years ago when I was teaching, I was also the evening dean, and Mary called me in the afternoon when I was taking myself out to dinner, because I would teach during the day and then take myself to dinner and come back and run the evening school. And Mary called me, and have you ever picked up the phone, you know something's wrong? And I knew something was wrong because Mary wasn't talking. And finally I had to say, hi, what's going on? And she said, I just walked out the doctor's office, I had cancer. She was devastated. We were all devastated, our two daughters and their husbands. So we all gathered together and talked about it, drank, ate, laughed, cried, the whole thing. Mary went home. I'm sorry, the daughters went home, and Mary and I talked about it a lot. And we talked about Dr. E.P. Sullivan's work on learned optimism. What we decided to do, and this is what optimists do when dealing with really, really, really hard stuff, is we decided to isolate the cancer. So here's the cancer with the mastectomy and the chemo and the radiation, all the things that comes with it. But it's not the only thing in our lives. There are some other things that are just as real, like we have been married for 40 years, like we live in Sonoma, like our daughters are married to men who love them even more than we do. So we said we are not going to let the cancer be an umbrella over the rest of our lives. We're just not going to let that happen. Was that easy? Of course not. Did we have to make that decision more than once? Absolutely. But here's the exciting part. Ready? Hang on to your seat. The more we decided to make that, the more we decided to make that decision, the easier it got to do. Why? Because the brain's rewiring itself. And the first time is the hardest, and then it becomes easier and easier and easier. So a year later, Mary was cancer-free, and the year after that, and then she called me, but this time it was different. She started talking, and she said, hi. I walked out of the doctor's office, they found something. How are you doing? You know what, Steve, I'm doing all right. How? I made it through last time. I can make it through this time. What changed? Not the cancer. It was what Mary said about the cancer. Can you see how powerful and wonderful this stuff is? Now, let's begin to close. Right now, if I stopped and said, thank you so much for listening to me, you would probably say, oh, this guy was really good. He was very fun, and I really like what he said. What did he say? I'm not really sure. Something about the brain, but that's about all I remember. The reason is because all this stuff is on the left side of your brain, okay? It's just knowledge. It's computer gobbledygook. I'm sorry, it's psychological gobbledygook. What we need to do is get on the right side where your feelings are, because we're not thinking people who feel, we're feeling people who think. So if you don't use this, you're going to lose it. So what I want to do now for the last 6 minutes is to give you 2 new ways of using this for your own life that you can begin using today. 3 is too many to remember, so we'll cut it down just to 2. Okay? They're what I call 2 new ways of thinking. The first is from Stanford University back in 1975, which they called the effort effect. What they discovered is that most of us pass over our successes too quickly, too lightly for them to ever become a part of who we are. So when someone says, good job, you were really great, we often say, oh, that's really embarrassing. I could have been better. Thank you very much. That's egotistical. I'll try better next time. I was part of a team. Thank you very much. But you know what? No. And we say that a lot. The problem with that, dear people, is when you say that, what's your brain going to say? Oh, okay. Is it true? Don't care. And the sad part about that is that those compliments fall to the floor. What a waste. So here's your new way of thinking, okay? Here we go. From now on, when someone says, good job, you look at them and you smile and you say, you know what? That makes me feel really nice. Thanks for taking the time to tell me that. And then when you get by yourself, you wallow in your success like a pig in slop. Wallow in it. I have a question, dear people. Why do we have to wait for someone else to tell us how amazing we are? The part in your brain, don't miss this, the part in your brain that's recording what others are saying to you is the same that's recording what you're saying to yourself. Let's say that again so you don't miss it. The part in your brain physiologically that's recording what others are saying is the same part that's recording your own self-talk. Wow. And you can replace that self-talk. Okay, Steve, that sounds great, but what do you do when you screw up? What do you do when you really mess up? Well, when we really mess up, oftentimes you say, oh my gosh, how could I have been so stupid? And the sad part about that question is when you ask that question, your brain pops up and says, oh, I know. Remember that dumb thing you did yesterday? Or that dumb thing you did a week ago, a month ago, a year ago? Remember how you were the slowest reader in the 3rd grade? And we get out this list. We start going down the list of all the dumb things we've ever done. Now, this is really important to understand, dear people. When you do that, your brain does not know that those memories happened a week ago, a month ago, a year ago. The brain's recording them again. But this time as if they happened when? Right now. And then you're carrying that stuff around. Here's my message, and I get teary-eyed when I say this because it's so exciting. You don't have to do that anymore. Starting when? Right now. So what do you do instead? Use 3 wonderful words. Number 1, you throw away the list. Gone. And the words are, ready, here we go, the next time. The next time I'll do it this way. The next time I'll do it that way. And when you say the next time, you're saying 3 things. Number 1, you're saying there is a next time. How many next times do we get? Trillions and billions and gazillions. Isn't that exciting? Number 2, when you say the next time, you're saying, I'll never give up, ever. And then the best for last. Number 3, when you say the next time, you're saying, you know what? I'm still learning and I'm growing and I'm changing and I'm making mistakes and I'm messing up and I'm even failing. But just because I failed doesn't mean I'm a failure. Thomas Edison was asked how it felt to fail 999 times, looking for the filament of a light bulb, which turns out to be thin platinum. He said to a New York reporter, he said, I did not fail 999 times. I simply found 999 ways that didn't work. My dear friends, that's what we're doing, especially now in this pandemic. We're finding things that don't work so we can find things that do. I was on my way to work one morning when I was teaching. I was waiting for light to change. Kid came up, very, very fancy car, looked at my little Toyota, the light changed. He went heeling out in front of me, roaring north on 101, passing everyone with his fancy new car. As I watched him passing everyone, I had this epiphany. How many cars are already in front of him? Millions. How many cars are behind him? Millions. So maybe it's not a matter of how fast you get there. Maybe it's a matter of you're going in the right direction. But you know what, dear people, even when we go in the right direction, sometimes we just run out of gas. Sometimes we get a flat tire. Sometimes we even lose our way. But you know what? You can buy some more gas. You can replace the tire. You can get a map. And what's so wonderful is the brain just says, oh, okay. Is it true? Don't care. All I care about is what you tell me. You say it, I believe it. You lock onto it, you know what I will do? I'll do everything I can to make it true in your life. Wow. That's exciting. Thank you so, so much. Questions?
Well, thank you, Stephen. Wow, that was just a fantastic presentation.
Thank you.